Sometimes you do things for all the right reasons. In tonight's special report, Chains of Nobility, the story behind the Mameluke sword, Corey Atkins introduces us to a man who is trying to help teach others through just that, nobility.
As a Marine, I knew the story behind why we carried the Mameluke sword, but I feel like most of us had no idea the significance of their historical impact.
Meet Brad Graft. He served our country in the Marine Corps in the early 1990s. That's where he became interested in the story behind the sword the Marines carry, the Mameluke. Brad is also an author.
I really did want to shed some light on a largely unknown warrior culture that had a significant impact on history.
The story goes back centuries.
A Mameluke is a slave soldier. In the 13th century, Islamic princes throughout the Middle East used to enslave by the thousands 14 to 15-year-old fair-skinned Russians from the Russian steppe.
These boys were hunters and herders and excellent with their recurve bows, but they had a lot to prove.
They weren't admitted into this warrior society until they finished what was basically a rite of passage. Once trained, they became the backbone of the Middle Eastern armies, and they carried this exact saber.
Now here's where the Marine Corps comes in. In the early 1800s, Thomas Jefferson sent a ship with 7 Marines and some sailors to the Barbary Coast off of Africa. They were sent to stop the pirates who were affecting trade. In charge, Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon.
They ended up in Cairo after pulling together sort of a mercenary army full of Greeks and Arabs. They attacked a fortification near Derma and in Tripoli. When it was all said and done, a Islamic prince awarded Presley O'Bannon the Mameluke sword. In honor of him, the Marine Corps allows all of its officers to carry the Mameluke sword.
Brad became somewhat obsessed with this story, so he decided to write about it.
It's a trilogy, and the first book's called Chains of Nobility. My lead character and his friends sort of suffering this painful transition between being pagan steppe nomads, transitioning into elite Islamic knights.
Brad did painstaking research on this trilogy. He went to where the Mamelukes lived. He walked the same ground they did centuries ago.
I basically thought that if I worked hard enough, that I could make the book feel and smell real. So part of it was not just the research, but the travel. So I went to the Middle East, primarily Israel, and climbed through a lot of fortifications that were inhabited by both the Mamelukes and the Crusaders.
But Brad isn't doing this for himself. You could say he's still serving our country.
Yeah, I'm giving 100% of the income that I receive from the book's going to go straight to these 3 charities, which is Hope for the Warriors, Homes for Our Troops, and TAPS, which is Tragedy Assistance Programs for Survivors.
Chains of Nobility, Brotherhood of the Mamelukes was just released. You can find it on Amazon. So get yourself a copy and help Brad help others. And get a great story to boot.
I want them to feel a story that feels real. Sort of chuck them into an environment that they didn't know existed.
For 9 and 10 News, I'm Corey Atkins.